when looking at these Diablo 4 system requirements set out by Blizzard, I'm going to point you to looking at that each one of these has a separate resolution and frame rate. So what you've got to kind of work out here is what frame rate are you happy to work with and at what resolution. Now, changing your resolution on your monitor or graphics card, which isn't the native, actually usually gives you much worse performance than the native resolution. So if your monitor isn't 1080p, it's 1440p for example, changing it to 1080p will probably give you worse performance than actually running it at 1440. So don't change that, change the frames per second. So what I would do when you're running Diablo 4 this weekend or when it's live is maybe set it to the lowest setting in the graphics. So you set it to low graphics settings and then mess around with the frame rates until you get it to the minimum or just above the minimum of what you're happy with. Now for me, I for these type of games I'm running about 30 frames a second because my equipment can't run any much faster, and I also actually want it to be cool and quiet. But if you say no, I want 60 frames or 120 or whatever, then you either have to upgrade your graphics card, or if you've obviously got a latest one, you'll probably be okay, or downgrade, reduce your graphics settings. Now, one thing I have seen on other people when they've actually done YouTube videos, which the trouble with those is they're fairly compressed, you can't really tell what the graphics is like, is that actually lower quality graphics settings actually looks pretty good. You can't really tell that much, and obviously if you're running around you're going to tell even less. It's only static images, you tend to know more, so you could be quite surprised on how little you can actually get away with. What they do mention here is that if you want to run DSL3 or DLSS3, oh blimey, this just runs off the tongue that, doesn't it, that you need a RTX 40 series card. So that's a 4070 at the moment. That's the lowest one. I think they're bringing out a 4060 Ti, or have done by the time this video goes up. I think the 4070 is probably the minimum really, because also it actually does the ray tracing, and it has, I think, is it 12? Yes, it has 12 gigabytes of memory, because you've got to also remember that having a lot of options on, that your graphics memory will fill up. So just having them on, you've got to be careful on how much memory it runs, and you can do that by going into Task Manager. And as you can see here, I've got a rather ultra modern 7-year-old card, and it's telling me there that the actual GPU itself has 6 gig of memory, but my GPU memory is 14 gig, and I think that's because it's using 8 gig there to add on to that of my computer memory. So you really don't want to be going into your computer memory, because that's going to be a hell of a lot slower than your graphics memory. Okay, so when you are doing your benchmarking and your testing and everything, keep an eye on your Task Manager and see how much memory you're using your graphics card. So you might say, oh, this is working okay, by enabling the settings. Oh, well, it looks great. But if it's going to be putting it all into your computer memory, that could be causing the stuttering and slow frame rate. So you don't want to enable any settings. And then of course you could change the settings in the game to find out which ones actually eat up more GPU than others. Now I don't know when you change a setting if it actually refreshes it so that instantly, it takes the memory away, or it just says I've already allocated. You might have to reload the game, so you might want to test that. So these are all the things you need to test in the server slam, shall we say, this coming weekend, or when the game goes live. Because obviously if you if you want higher memory, higher graphics quality, and your 8 gig or 4 gig or whatever it is graphics card you've got hasn't got enough memory, then you can start thinking about whether you need to actually upgrade to another video card. Also, because as you can see I'm using 14 gig memory here, I don't know that by adding all the settings to maximum, you can see how much actual video memory in theory you would need if you're going to upgrade your card. So there's no point upgrading to another 8 gig card, because you'll know that yes, it might run faster, but it's actually using more GPU memory, hasn't got enough GPU memory to actually run it in the resolution or quality of game that you actually want it to run at. So you'll be wasting your money. And also, so here, if I find that I'm maxing out my if I've got 14 gig in use here, and I got 14 gig, then I actually know I need 16 gig for that resolution and quality of graphic setting. Or in theory I do. So bear that in mind. Because obviously we want to buy once really, and you don't want to you don't want to be buying a graphics card that's not going to do what you want it to do. Conversely, what you really want to be doing is seeing how your CPU copes with. Now, again, this is a 7-year-old CPU. You need to, when you're running the game, you want to see how much CPU is running. So obviously, this is running at fairly 80, 90%, or even 100%. Then upgrading your graphics card, if your PC can handle it, and power supply, etc., isn't going to be much use because the CPU won't be able to handle it. So you're going to have a much faster graphics card, but your CPU won't be keep up. So you need to see, well, can my CPU, is it running low enough that when I do upgrade my CPU to a much faster one, that it will be able to cope with that bandwidth until you can afford to upgrade a new motherboard and CPU and memory and everything else. You also want to check your disk, and I think that's the disk it's on. Obviously what you want to do is keep an eye on this to see how busy it is. I don't know how good Diablo is. I think it loads quite a lot into memory. Now what I would recommend is that when you go onto view, you update your speed to low. That way you'll get a longer period of time, because it doesn't run very long. So it's just showing you 4 minutes. So if I go to high, you're only going to get a 30-second snapshot window. So yes, you'll see all the individual peaks, which you might want, but you kind of want an overall. I've got some quick pointers here before I actually do some more videoing, and it just shows you some options for the graphics card. And this is about, like, if you set the texture quality to high, it's going to need 8 GB of memory. And as you see from my task manager, my 980 for example has 6 gig. So already it's I'm going to be using 2 gig of shared memory. So that would obviously need to be changed to medium. I'm not sure what medium is, but I'm guessing it's going to be less than 8. And so it's good worth checking out each individual option to see if anything like that is shown. Again, the CPU, it actually does mention CPU specifically in this option. Reflection quality, I think it affects the CPU, but again you can change that option if you need to, and see if it actually adjusts, lowers the CPU usage. If it doesn't, obviously leave it alone. And there you go. So if there's any questions or what you want me to answer in the next video, coming up videos, or things you'd like me to look at, leave them in the comments and I will add them. Thank you.